Beings of light, have you ever felt like your mind was a whirlwind of emotions, like a stormy sea unable to find calm? We all go through moments when our emotions seem to take over our minds, dragging us into turbulent waters of anxiety, anger, and sadness. The idea of a serene mind, calm like a still lake, may seem distant, but Zen teaches us something powerful. The mind, like water, has the ability to be clear and calm. It can be serene even in the midst of a storm. In Zen, there is a fundamental principle known as mind like water, which reminds us that our mind, like the water of a lake, can be serene, deep, and calm, regardless of external circumstances. When our emotions arise, they can be like waves in the sea, agitated and intense. But these waves are not permanent. They come and go. The key is how we react to them. Instead of fighting these emotions, trying to control or suppress what we feel, Zen teaches us to observe, accept, and let go. Like water that always finds its balance, no matter the obstacles in its path. But how do we do this? How can we cultivate this inner calm that Zen speaks of? We begin with the practice of observation. Instead of letting ourselves be consumed by the intensity of our emotions, we can learn to step back a little and simply observe them. When we find ourselves in moments of anger or sadness, we can simply stop for a moment and ask, "What am I feeling right now? How is this emotion manifesting in my body, in my mind?" This simple act of observation already puts us in a position of greater control, because we are no longer being swept away by the current of our feelings, but instead, we are beginning to understand the flow of these inner waters. Zen teaches us that, just as water naturally calms when the winds die down, our mind can also calm when we stop fighting our emotions. The practice of allowing emotions to come and go without resistance is one of the greatest gifts of Zen. By doing so, we begin to discover that true peace is not in avoiding emotions, but in not identifying with them. We are more than what we feel, and as we practice this daily, we can begin to live with a quieter, clearer mind, like water that reflects the sky without distortion. Beloveds, this practice of detachment and observation of emotions is not something that happens overnight. It requires patience and dedication. But the beauty of Zen is that each step toward this tranquility brings a deep sense of freedom. Soon, we will explore more deeply how we can apply the teaching of mind like water in our daily lives, especially during moments of great emotional turmoil. As we delve deeper into the practice of Zen, we begin to understand that true inner peace does not come from suppressing or denying our emotions, but from the acceptance and deep understanding of them. When we allow ourselves to simply observe our emotions as if we were watching a wave in the ocean without judging it or trying to control it, we begin to realize that emotions, like waves, are temporary. They rise, reach their peak, and then dissipate, leaving only tranquility for those who know how to wait. The key to Zen lies in not resisting what we feel. When we feel anger, sadness, or fear, it's natural to want to push them away or run from these uncomfortable feelings. However, Zen teaches us that resistance only increases the intensity of these emotions. Instead of throwing ourselves into the fight against them, we should actually let them come and go, like clouds crossing the sky. The secret is not in controlling what we feel, but in learning to let these emotions pass without clinging to them. Imagine you are in the midst of an emotional storm. Maybe you became angry with something or someone, or perhaps a deep sadness took over your heart. If you identify with this emotion and start fighting against it, you will be creating more turbulence in your mind. However, if you can simply stop, breathe deeply, and allow this emotion to come and go, without judging it, without trying to control or suppress it, you will notice that the storm begins to calm. You will start to see anger or sadness not as something that needs to be fought, but as something that, when accepted and observed with awareness, loses its power to disturb your inner peace. Zen teaches us to practice this kind of acceptance and presence constantly, every day. When moments of anger or sadness arise, instead of reacting immediately, we can take a step back and ask ourselves, what am I feeling now? Why is this emotion arising? What does it want to teach me? By doing this, we are not trying to change the emotion, but simply allowing it to be. And when we allow it to be, the emotion already begins to dissipate, without resistance, without pressure. Like water that calms after a storm, our mind also finds peace when we stop fighting our emotions. The Zen practice is, in fact, a practice of total acceptance of what we feel, without attachment or aversion. Emotions, like the wind, come and go, but our true nature, the clear and calm water of the mind, remains unchanged. When we begin to observe our emotions without identifying with them, we become more present, more connected to what is really happening inside us. And it is in this state of presence that we find true inner peace. Zen teaches us that peace is not something we seek, but something we allow. It is always present, waiting to be recognized, even in the most intense emotions. The true strength of Zen lies in realizing that our emotions are not our enemies, but simply part of our human experience. When we learn to treat them with compassion and acceptance, they become powerful allies, not sources of suffering. Have you ever given yourself the chance to simply feel without fighting? To observe without trying to control? If so, you have already experienced the freedom that comes with it. If not yet, don't worry. Every moment of practice is one step closer to a mind as calm as water. And in the next part, we will explore how you can apply this in your daily life, especially when emotional agitation seems to be on edge. Now that we have explored the power of observation and acceptance of emotions, it is time to look at how we can apply this profound teaching in our daily lives. How can we live more serenely, even when emotional waves seem uncontrollable? Zen teaches us that by practicing mind like water daily, we can face life's storms with the tranquility of a deep and clear lake. The constant practice of acceptance and non-resistance to our emotions creates in us a silent, yet immeasurable strength that allows us to live in harmony with what we feel, without being dominated by it. In daily life, it is inevitable that we will face moments of great emotional turmoil. It might be a day when we feel particularly anxious, or a moment when anger takes over, or even a moment of deep sadness. These moments are natural. They are part of our human experience. But the big question is, how do we react when these emotions arise? When we practice Zen, we begin to realize that instead of reacting automatically, we can take a step back and simply observe the emotion as it is, without identifying with it. We can say to ourselves, "This is just an emotion arising in me, but I am not this emotion." Zen teaches us to create space between stimulus and reaction. Imagine you are going through a moment of frustration. You could immediately explode, react with anger, or complain about the situation. But if you practice acceptance and observation, you can, in that very moment, pause. Breathe deeply. Observe the anger arising in your body and mind, but without letting it take control. This pause, this moment of conscious observation, is when true transformation happens. You begin to realize that, despite feeling anger, you have the power to choose how to respond. When you apply this practice of mind like water, you begin to live with more lightness, more clarity, more presence. The challenging situations that once could have dragged you into a cycle of uncontrolled emotions begin to lose their power. The waves may come, but you have already learned to let them go, knowing they are temporary. Like water, you remain serene, flowing along your path without being trapped or sunk by the emotions that arise along the way. Throughout this journey, beloveds, it is important to remember that the practice is not about being perfect. It's not about never feeling anger or sadness again. On the contrary, Zen practice teaches us to be compassionate with ourselves, to accept emotions as they are, without judgment. When we practice with this compassionate view, we become kinder to ourselves and to others, because we learn that everyone is going through the same emotional storms. And by recognizing this, we are able to offer our peace, our serenity, like a lighthouse for those who are still struggling with their own inner storms. Now, I invite you to reflect. How have you been dealing with your emotions? When an intense emotion arises, how do you react? Do you allow yourself to feel without judgment? Or do you fight against what you feel, trying to control or deny it? The practice of mind like water is a constant journey, a process of learning and growth. Each moment is an opportunity to practice. And by applying this principle in your life, you begin to realize that instead of being dragged by emotions, you begin to surf the waves of life with a sense of peace and inner balance that only practice can bring. Let me know in the comments how you've been dealing with your emotions and what you've been doing to maintain serenity in moments of turmoil. Share your experiences, because together we can learn and grow. The path to inner peace is a journey we never take alone. Thank you for being here and being part of this exchange.